Hi and assalamualaikum everyone. Today we're going to present about theories of personality. My name is Shafina and I will be the first presenter who going to present about the definitions of personality. So let's move the slide. For personality definition, they are divided into four, which is the personality itself and then character, temperament and traits. So I'm going to explain to you about the definition of personality first. So definition of personality in simple term is the way we think, feel, and behave consistently across different situations. So the APA defines personality as an enduring configuration of characteristics and behavior. This means personality is stable over time and includes various elements that shape a person's unique response to life. There are six of them, which is the first one is major traits. It's a core personality characteristics like extraversion and conscientiousness, and the interests, which is preferences in activities, hobbies, or career path, and then drive, which is internal motivation like ambition or curiosity that push behavior. And then we have values, which is personal belief that guide decision making, such as honesty or loyalty. And then self concept, how individuals perceive themselves influencing their confidence and actions. And then abilities is skills and talents that affect a person's range. And then the last one is emotional patterns. It's a typical ways a person reacts emotionally, such as being calm under pressure or easily frustrated. So this definition emphasizes personality as a complex, lifelong system shaping how people adapt to their environment. And also Albert described personality as a dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems. His definition focuses on both psychological and biological factors influencing personality. Because a dynamic organization is a personality. It's say that personality is not fixed, it evolves as people experience life and grow. And then psychophysical system, it is a personality is influenced by both the mind and body, including temperament, brain function, and learned behavior. And then characteristics, behavior, and thought, which is personality determines how people consistently act and think in various situations. So output views output view highlight personality as an active, ever-changing system rather than a set of rigid traits. For example, imagine two students, which is Sarah and Ayman. They both face the same situation, which is a sudden group project. So, Sarah, extroverted and leadership-oriented nature drive her actions, while Ayman's introverted and analytical personality makes him more focused on structure and accuracy. So, Sarah is outgoing, confident, and organized. She takes charge and leads, while Ayman, reserved, thoughtful, and detail-oriented, he focuses on accuracy and planning. So these demonstrate how personality shapes how people interact, respond to challenges, and approach different situations. So move on to the next one, which is character. So the noun character has a fascinating etymology with origins in ancient Greek. It is derived from the Greek word character, which is originally meant a stamping tool or an engraved mark. So in ancient times, character was used to describe a distinctive mark or symbol, often used for branding or engravings. Over time, the term evolved to include the idea of the distinctive attributes that define an individual's identity or personality. So character is all about moral and ethics. So basically, character refers to again moral and ethical qualities, the value judgment we make about someone's behavior, whether we view them as kind, honest, selfish, or cruel. So character could be good or bad. For example, someone who is honest, kind, and respectful is considered to have a good character, while someone who is dishonest or rude might be judged as having an undesirable character. So again, character could be good or bad. It is a person moral and ethical qualities, their integrity and the distinctive attributes that define who they are as a human being. So in psychology, character refers to the set of moral, ethical, and social value that shape a person's behavior and decision making. It reflects an individual's belief, integrity, and principle, influencing how they interact with others and respond to situations. Unlike personality, which includes broader traits, character is often associated with moral strength and personal values. So, for example, imagine two persons, Alia and Daniel, who both face the same situation, which is witness someone accidentally drop their wallet. Alia, who value honesty and integrity, immediately picks up the wallet and returns it to the owner without hesitation. While Daniel, however, decided to keep the wallet, thinking that no one saw what happened. So he later used the money inside the wallet for himself. So this scenario highlight how character is defined by moral choices. Character is about the choices we make and how we uphold ethical principles in everyday life. While personality again influence behavior naturally, character involve conscious decisions guided by moral and value. Okay, now we move on to temperament, which is quite different. When we talk about temperament, we are referring to um biologically based individual differences in emotion, motor, reactivity, and self-regulation that demonstrate consistency across situation and over time. As you can see, temperament places much more emphasis on characteristics being biological because there are clear distinction in how babies react to novel stimuli, their activity levels, and their sociability from very early on. For example, before they have even had experience or environmental influences very much. So when talking about temperament, there are always different ways in which psychologists have grouped behavioral characteristic underlying a particular mean temperament profile. So one of the first to do this was Thomas and Chess. So in their study, Thomas and Chess interviewed parents about their children behavior. So based on this interview, they derived three big categories. So based on the picture, as you can see, the first, which was composed of about 10% of the children they interviewed, were difficult children. A difficult child tended to be irritable, had an irregular biological rhythm, meaning that their sleeping and eating habits were very disorganized, and had intense response to new situation. So basically, these parents probably got very little sleep because of the difficult child temperament. So an easy child, which made up about 40% of the children, is kind of what we will all have hope to have. So easy child is generally happy. They have regular biological rhythms, so their sleeping schedule was fairly consistent, and they were really good at accepting new situations. So they were less likely to become irritated. In contrast, the slow to warm up child is a typically shy child. They seem to be a little more reluctant or hesitant in new situations. So they adapt slowly and can react negatively, but also show a low intensity in their emotional reaction. So as you can see, in their based on their research, Dr. Chess and Thomas also describe nine general traits found in children. So the first one is activity. Activity is their level of motor activity and the amount of time they spend being active. And then the second one is rhythmicity or regularity. How regular their patterns of eating, sleeping, and other bodily functions are. And then response to new things, how they will probably respond to new experiences, whether they are likely to accept them or withdraw from them. And then adaptability, how they respond to changes in their environment. And then sensitivity, which is their threshold for stimuli and response, the energy level and intensity of their responses. And then disposition, whether they generally seem happy or unhappy, friendly or unfriendly. And distractibility, how easily they can be distracted from what they are doing. And then attention, the last one is attention span, which is the span of time they will pay attention to one thing when left to their own devices, and they're persistent with an activity. So while Thomas and Chess created a good starting point for temperament researchers, more nuanced categories have been created since their classic study. So one of them is Rothbard and Bath that extended on Thomas and Chess by fine-tuning some of the temperaments profile. They believe that instead of three broad categories proposed by Thomas and Chess, Children temperament actually differs on seven main dimensions. So these include positive effect or approach, which capture the child's sociability, activity level, or how much the child moves, fearfulness, or the amount of distress or withdrawal shown, anger or frustration, or the negative emotion displayed when a child is frustrated, intentional orienting, or how long the child can engage in activities, effortful control, or their ability to suppress the dominant response, like their level of impulsivity. And yeah, that's basically it. So, how did they get this dimension, this six dimension that you can see? Positive effect, approach, activity level, faithfulness, anger or frustration, attentional orienting, effortful control. It's by assessment of temperament, which is parental report, laboratory observation, and psychophysiological assessment. So, what temperament refers to individual differences in behavioral style, emotions, and characteristic ways of responding. It is your predisposition toward emotional reactivity and self-regulation. What I mean by emotional reactivity is how quickly and intensely a person responds to their emotions. So, for instance, an infant with high emotional reactivity, as you can see in the picture, might give a big hearty laugh when they find something amusing, or scream and cry loudly if there's something they don't like. And a baby with a low emotional reactivity might just give a quiet chuckle or mild whimper. Self-regulation involve variation in how much or how well someone is able to control their emotion. For example, when you get mad, you get really, really mad. But if you have high self regulation, you are able to control the anger and not say or do anything foolish. So there is also the theory of the four temperament. I will simply explain to all of you so that you guys can easily understand each of these. So the first one is sanguine. People with the sanguine temperament are enthusiastic, active, and social. They are extroverted. They are extroverts who enjoy meeting new people and being part of a crowd. They find it easy to socialize and often make new friends by virtue of being social, outgoing, and charismatic. So, sanguine personality often have a hard time doing nothing and may be prone to seek out risky activity as a way of keeping themselves stimulated. And then we have choleric. So, choleric temperament, choleric individuals are extroverted but like the carefree attitude of the sanguine temperament. As a result, they are determined, independent, decisive, and goal oriented. Fact based and logical, they typically enjoy being in charge since they have many leadership qualities as well as ambitions. So, on the other hand, they are also disagreeable and may be prone to anger when things do not go their way. And then we have phlegmatic temperament. Phlegmatic individuals are peaceful, quiet, and easygoing. They are sympathetic and care about others, yet try to hide or downplay um, their emotion seeking instead to influence others through gentleness and cooperation. So they are good at resolving conflicts and problems by way of making sensible compromise. But on the other hand, they may also be too self-sacrificing or unambitious in the name of avoiding conflicts. So, moving on to melancholic temperament. People with a melancholic temperament are intense, serious, and deep. They are sensitive and capable of deep emotions. They have a well developed eye for the tragic or sad side of things and may easily be disappointed by the coarseness, coarseness of the outer world. So, as a result, to keep to themselves or only really open up around to select few individuals with whom they can exchange feelings and ideas. So, it is important to understand the temperament because temperament is not learned; it's part of who we are from birth. And last one is trait. So, basically, a trait is a consistent and measurable quality of a person behavior. Traits help psychologists describe and predict behavior across various situations. So move the next slide for the traits.  。  . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 . . . . . 。 . . . . . . . . . . . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . . 。 . . 。 . 。 .
Here are some common traits categorized into positive and negative tendencies. So, positive traits, um, we have honesty, creativity, leadership, kindness, passion, responsibility, ambition. And example of negative traits is impulsiveness, selfishness, aggression, unreliability, arrogance, and dishonesty. So traits interact and combine in complex way, making each person unique. So one of the most well-known framework is the Big Five personality traits. But other theories like Gordon Albert trait theory and Raymond Cattell's 16 personality factors also provide insights. So psychologists Costa and McRae developed the five-factor model, which is openness, conscientiousness, extraversion, aggressiveness, and neuroticism. This help us categorize different personality. The Big Five personality traits are a widely accepted model in psychology that describe five key dimensions of personality. So these traits exist on a spectrum, meaning individuals can have varying degrees of each. About this trait, it will be explained from the other presenter later. And then Gordon Alpert trait theory is one of the earliest and most influential approaches to understanding personality. He proposed that personality is made up of individual traits which are stable and unique characteristics that shape a person's behavior. Three types of traits in Alpert's theory is cardinal traits. For example, a deeply religious leader whose whole life revolves around faith. And then central trait. For example, someone who may be honest, intelligent, or sociable, but these traits do not define their entire identity. And then um, secondary traits, which is a person may be calm in daily life, for example, but nervous before public speaking. So this nervousness is a secondary trait. So Alper emphasizes that personality is unique to each individual, rejecting the idea that people fit into broad categories. His theory laid the foundation for later trait-based models, such as the Big Five personality traits. And then we have Raymond Cattell's 16 personality factors. It's a trait-based approach to understanding personality. He believed that human personality could be broken down into 60 primary traits, which influence behavior and interaction, as you can see in the picture that I already put in the slide. So each trait influences how people interact with the world and others. So trait helps psychologists understand behavior patterns and predict how someone might respond in different situations. So while a personality type is a broader classification, so it's basically it. So what I can conclude here in the next slide. Overall, what I can conclude here is you should think of personality as the entire puzzle. So personality as the entire puzzle. Character is how others judge our morals and choices. Temperament is the biological base, what we reborn with. Traits are the consistent pattern we display, like friendliness or reliability. So these all come together to form the unique personality that makes each of us who we are. It's like a puzzle. So imagine, for example, for you to understand more about the definitions of these four personality, character, temperaments, and trait, I can give you the example so you can easily understand. You should imagine someone who is naturally calm and adaptable, which is temperament, usually tells the truth and help others. It's a character, and tends to be cheerful, punctual, and outgoing, which is traits, and all these elements combined describe their personality. So in conclusion, understanding these four terms, personality, character, temperament, and trait, help us appreciate the complexity of human behavior. It also provides a foundation for exploring deeper personality theories, which we will continue in the rest of this presentation. So that's all from my part. I will give to the next presenter. Thank you.
Alright, so I'm Yasrina Ostabekir Azmi will be the next presenter, and the topic that I will be present is psychoanalytic perspective from Sigmund Freud. So we have Sigmund Freud developed the psychoanalytic perspective, which is one of psychology's most influential and foundational theories. So examines how unconscious first childhood experience and also internal conflict influence human behavior and also personality. So we have a few core concepts of Freud personality theory. So the first one we have a structure of the mind. So here I have attached the picture of the stage of model of the mind from Freud. So the first one we have conscious. Conscious is a thought and perceptions that we are currently aware of. Okay, the second stage we have pre-conscious. So pre-conscious is a memories and also knowledge that can be brought to awareness. And the last one we have unconscious. So unconscious is a deep desire, painful memories, and also unresolved conflicts that influence behavior without our awareness. So the next concept we have personality structure, which is tripartite theory. So we have three personality, which is ID, ego, and superego. So we go through ID first. So ID is the primitive instinctual part operation operates on the pleasure principle, which is in immediate gratification. So example, a hungry baby crying for a meal. So the next one we have ego. Ego is the rational decisions making parts, which is operates on the reality principle, which is balance ID and reality. So for the example, we have finding a restaurant instead of stealing foods. So the last one we have super ego for personality structure. So super ego is the terms Freud give to conscience, where morality and higher principle reside, encouraging us to act in socially and also more acceptable way. So for example, feeling guilty for lying. So next we have for the third core concept, we have psychosexual stage of development. So, Freud believed that personality develops in early childhood, and that childhood experience shape both our personality and also our adult behavior. So, he asserted that we grow through a series of stages during childhood. Sorry, sorry. In each of us must go through this childhood stage, and if we do not receive the necessary nurturing and also parenting during a stage, we will remain stuck or fixated in that stage even as adult. So next, here are the pictures of spirit stage of psychosexual developments. So during each sexual stage of development, the child pleasure seeking years, which originates from the idea, are the directs towards a different area of the body known as an erogenous zones. So the five stages are oral, anal, polis, latency, and so genitals. So next, so first we have represents. So the ego prevents disturbing memories of the threatened through from entering consciousness, pushing them into the unconsciousness. For the example, forgetting a traumatic event. So the second one we have denials. So the ego conceal upsetting or overwhelming experience from awareness, causing us to refuse to acknowledge or believe what is ongoing. So, for example, we have not believing a loved one has died. So, the third one we have projections. So, the ego attempt to resolve discomfort by distributing our undesirable thoughts, feeling, and also motivate to other persons. For example, accusing someone else of being angry when you are the one that be angry. So the fourth one we have displacements. So the ego fulfills an unconscious impulse by acting on a substitute object or person in a socially unacceptable manner. So for example, we have yelling at your sibling after a bad day at work. Next, we have regressions. So regressions is to deal with stress, ego functionings return to an early stage of psychological development. So for the regression, the example that we have is throwing a tantrum when frustrated. So the sixth one we have sublimations. So this similar to displacements, the ego is self-complete by directing surplus energy into a social acceptable activity. So, for example, channeling anxiety into exercise, work, or other creative pursuit. So the summary of core concept of Freud psychoanalytic theory is according to Freud psychoanalytic perspective, behavior is caused by unconscious drive, childhood experience, and also internal conflicts between the ID, ego, and superego. Despite being controversial and unpopular in modern scientific psychology, it leads to groundwork for understanding personality, therapy, and also mental health. So that's all from me for psychoanalytic theory. I will pass to next presenter. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Shakiri Natasha, and today I'll be talking about the two key contributor to the psychodynamic perspective, which is Carl Jung and Alfred Adler. Okay, to start with, the psychodynamic perspective is based on the idea that unconscious motive and childhood experience deeply influence our thought and behavior. This view begin with Sigmund Freud, who believed in the power of unconscious desire and inner conflicts. But over time, psychologists like Jung and Adler disagree with Freud, especially his strong focus on sexuality, and created their model to explain personality and behavior. So we're gonna start with the Carl Jung, which is he is a Swiss psychiatrist, broke away from Freud and founded what he called analytic psychology. He believed that the unconscious wasn't just personal; it was also collective, meaning we all share deep universal pattern and symbol across time. Unlike Freud, Jung was more focused on personal growth and spiritual meaning. So here's some of Jung's most important idea, which is collective unconscious, a shared layer of the unconscious that include universal human experience, archetype, which is represent symbol or role that appear in myth, dream, and story. For example, the hero, the mother, or the shadow. The next one is introversion and extraversion, which is Jung introduced this term. Introvert focus inward and prefer solitude. Extrovert are more social and outward facing. The next one is persona and shadow, which is the persona is the mask we show to the world, while the shadow is the darker hidden part of ourselves. The last one is individuation, which is this is Jung ultimate goal of personality development, becoming a fully realized version of yourself by integrating all part of the side. So the next one is the Alfred Adler, which is he is the Austrian psychologist, also broke away from Freud, but in a more practical direction. He believed people are not driven by unconscious desire, but by a need to overcome inferiority and grow as individual. He calls his approach individual psychology, and it focuses more on social relationship and goals. So Adler major idea include inferiority complex, which is we all start life feeling weak or dependent, and this feeling of inferiority can motivate us or hold us back if they're too strong. Next is striving for superiority. Adler believe people naturally try to grow, improve, and overcome obstacles, not to dominate others, but to be better version of themselves. Next, we have social interests, which is the healthy personality includes care for others and contributing to society. Adler saw this as essential for good mental health. And the last one is birth order. He was the first to study how your position in the family, firstborn, middle child, youngest, affect your personality and behavior. Next is the comparison table between Jung and Adler, which is this is other key concept we can see in the focus. Jung more focus on self growth and symbolism. Meanwhile, Adler more focus on social development and personal growth. With next is key motivation, which is Jung focus on self realization, which is in individual. Meanwhile, Adler striving for superiority. They both move away from Freud but in completely different direction. As you can see, Jung leaned towards inner symbolism and identity, while Adler focused more on practical, social aspect of life. Next. So, to conclude, Carl Jung gave us valuable insight into the unconscious mind, spiritual growth, and personality type. Meanwhile, Adler emphasized social belonging, self esteem, and motivation for success. Their ideas are still influential today in therapy, education, leadership, and personal growth. If I could leave you with one last thought, both Jung and Adler believe people are capable of growing, healing, and becoming better version of themselves, whether through self-discovery or by helping others. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and greetings to everybody in the discussion. So, what I'm going to present as of today is about the social cognitive perspective explained by Julian Rother and Albert Bandura. Is all about how your thoughts, experiences, and the people around you shape who you are today. So, Rother said that some people believe they control what happens in their life. That is called the internal locus of control, while others think in their life called that thing is just happen because of luck, um, and influenced by other people. That is called external locus of control. So, Bandura added that your personality is shaped by how you act, how you feel, think, and your environment. All of these influence each other. He also believed that we learn a lot just by watching others, and that believing in yourself, that is called self efficacy, helps you do better in life. Basically, your personality grows from how you think, what you see around you, and how you respond to the world. Move on to the next slide. Okay. The behavioristic perspective is like training a pet. So you learn to do things because of rewards, or you can get punishments out of it. If something good happens, you will probably do it again. So the social cognitive perspective goes a step further, that says you also learn by watching others and thinking about your choices of doing it. Hence, it's not just about what happens to you, but also what you see, what you believe, and what you decide in your mind before you execute it. So we have Albert Bandura on the right side and Julian Rother on the left side. Albert Bandura's theory makes ideas from behaviorism and social cognitive thinking. Like behaviorism, he believed we learn from rewards and punishments, but that's not the whole story. He believed we learn a lot just by watching people, like observational learning, and by thinking about what might happen if we act a certain way. He also said that if we believe in ourselves, that is called self-efficacy, we are more likely to try and succeed. So, Bandura's theory says we learn a, we learn from what happens to us, from what we see and what we believe. Um, Next, for not yet. All right. As for Julian Rotter's theory, mix behaviorism with thinking, like behaviorists, he believed we learn from rewards and punishments. But he also said that we expect something like that happen matters too. What we expect to happen matters too. His most famous idea is locus of control. Some people think they are in control of what happens in their life. That is one part of internal. While other things, things just happen because of luck or influenced by other people. That is called external. So, Rota believe our behavior is not just shaped by what happens, but also by what we believe will happen and how much we think we can control it. For instance, imagine you are learning freestyle football tricks. So, according to Bandura's theory, if you watch a freestyler doing cool tricks on social media, you observe it and you watch it on YouTube and you think, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too. So that what we call self-efficacy and observational learning. You expect that if you're training a lot, you will get better and impress your friends. Or maybe go viral online as reinforcement value from what the reward means to you. As for Julian Rotter theory, if you believe that if you practice hard, you will improve and perform cool tricks, you expect your effort to lead to success. You also believe that you also think of the reward as such, winning a competition, gaining followers, or getting praise. The reinforcement value shows how much the reward matters to you. So you keep practicing it because you believe your actions make a difference and the reward is something you really want. So that's how Rota explains motivation and learning. Move on to the next slide. And next slide. Next slide, please. So this is all of the key points to Albert Bandura's theory and Julian Rotter's theory. From what we can observe here, we have socio-cognitive for the perspective from Albert Bandura that expanded on behaviorism by including mental processes. So the main theory itself is reciprocal determinism, and the key concept of it is behavior, influenced by the behavior, personal factors, and the environments. And the famous terms that Banduras uses is observational learning and self-efficacy. And you can learning it by watching others, by the observational that you are doing, and the interaction is between thinking, behavior, and your surroundings. So you become confident by doing something that you wanted. As for Julian Rotter, we have social cognitive that also influenced by behaviorism, and it builds on behaviorist ideas with added cognitive elements, which is the main theory of it is locus of control. So it has expectations and reinforcement value. Internal versus external locus of control, you can differentiate it. Eh, what happened? Where's the slide?
Sorry guys, let me shut down.
Okay. Um, Sorry for the disturbance, the malfunctioning. Okay. Moving along to the next slide. So from what we can observe from this picture, we have a bunch of skaters sitting in a group watching something on the phone. Probably they are watching skate video clip on how an individual receive the message as an input that will influence their attitude. So we observe, learn, and believe from the people and environment that is around us, because that is how they it influence our attitudes of what we feel or think about something. Okay. Why is it not playing? Okay, there we go. There we go, people. Okay, so this is the skate videos. Let me stop there first. All right. So probably they are watching their skate videos with their friends because they wanted to do some cool tricks. So they observe the clips and their brain receive the input and it influenced their behavior or attitudes of committing that tricks and execute that tricks. So Albert Bandura's theory of observational learning, for instance, we pick up attitudes by seeing others, such as when we take on the point of view of our favorite influencer. Additionally, we apply the cognitive process such as thinking, evaluating, making decisions to shape our attitude according to our expectations and our level of concern for the result, such as reinforcement value. So, how strongly we feel about doing something that can also be influenced by our level of efficiency, or what we can say is our own confidence in ourselves. So, that is all for me. Thank you.
Okay, so hi, my name is Fatin, and today I'm going to talk about humanistic perspective, Carl Rogers' self theory. So, the humanistic perspective, also known as the third force in psychology, emerged as a reaction to the negativity of psychoanalysis and the deterministic nature of behaviorism. So, this perspective focuses on what makes people uniquely human, emphasizing subjective emotions, self awareness, and the freedom to choose our own path. So it views human beings in a more positive way, believing that everyone has the potential to grow and live a meaningful life. So next, the first one is self-actualization. So this self-actualization means becoming the best version of yourself. So by using your talents, passions, and values to live fully. For example, a musician might choose to focus on their art instead of money because it brings purpose and joy. So, Rogers believed that everyone has this drive to grow, but we need the right support to reach it. Next, self concepts. So, Carl Rogers introduced the idea of self concept as the center of personality development. So, it is your personal understanding of who you are, and it is shaped by your life experience and interaction with others. Rogers also explained that self concept has two important parts, and the first one is self image. or how you see yourself now, and second one, the ideal self or who you want to become. So when these two match closely, it is called congruence, and it leads to confidence, balance, and growth. But if they are very different, it creates incongruence, which can cause stress and low self-esteem. For example, if I see myself as weak, but I want to be strong and brave, this gap might make me feel sad or not good enough. That is why Rogers said congruence is important for becoming our best self or reaching self actualization. Next, unconditional versus conditional positive regard. So, one of the most powerful part of Carl Rogers' theory is the idea of positive regard. So, in simple words, how people love, accept, or treat us. He explained that there are the two types of positive regard. The first one is called unconditional positive regard. So, this means receiving love, support, and acceptance no matter what. For example, it is when someone says, I love you even if you make mistakes. So, this kind of love makes people feel safe and confident, and it helps us grow into our true self. So, it is what Rogers believes is best for healthy development and self esteem. And the second type is called conditional positive regard. This is when love or approval is only given if you act a certain way. For example, I will be proud of you if you get good grades. So this makes people afraid to be their true self. They may feel anxious, fake, or like they are never enough. Over time, this leads to self-doubt and low self-worth. Rogers strongly believes that we all need unconditional love from our parents, friends, teachers, even ourselves, so we can grow into a fully functioning person. Next, uh, the last one, fully functioning person. Carl Rogers also introduced the idea of a fully functioning person, and this is someone who is mentally and emotionally healthy and truly living their life with meaning. So the first, growing and learning. A fully functioning person is not perfect, but they are growing and always learning from life, from experience, and from their own mistakes. They don't try to hide who they are, and they are comfortable with their feelings and decisions. Second one, lives in the present moment. One important thing Rogers mentioned is that this kind of person lives in the present moment. They don't stay stuck in the past or worry too much about the future. They focus on now, what they are feeling, or what they are doing, and how they can keep moving forward. The third one, trust on thought and feelings. So another trait is that they trust themselves, which is their emotions, their decision, and their goals. And the last one, open to new experience. They are open to new experience, not afraid to try or explore because they believe in their own inner strength. And Roger also believed that anyone can become a fully functioning person, but we need the right environment. For example, like supportive people, unconditional love, and the freedom to be who we are. Okay, so that's all. I'm passing to the next presenter.
All right. Assalamualaikum. Very good evening, everyone. So my name is Muhammad Izzat Mustafa bin Abdullah. As today, I'll be sharing and talking about the trait perspective, which is under the Raymond Cattell, hence ISAPS, and also the Big Five personality. So now let's take a look at Raymond Cattell first. So in a way that we know that personality is generally a way to understand how human being will react in particular situation based on their environmental circumstances, right? So, according to Raymond Cattell in 1990s, defined that there are two types of traits that is believed as major traits, which is the surface traits and also the sources traits. So, the sources traits are like those actually who found by Alport, mentioned by other sisters in another slides before, representing how the personality characteristic works easily seen by the other people. So the sources traits are those most basic traits that are underlying the surface trait simulation. So we can see that using in a book in a journal of Raymond Cattell mentioned that using a statistical technique that looks for groupings or individuals, niche group of people who they wanted to identify easily in numerical data, they call as a factor analysis. This has been used in uh, Raymond Cattell 16PF, the sources traits. Although he determined there might be another seven sources, which is another trait to make a total of 23 factors. So based on 16 sources, as seen as trait dimensions continuums, which are two opposite traits. For example, for someone actually who's scoring near the reserve and or reserve ongoing dimension would be more introvert rather than someone who are scoring in the middle or at the end of opposite uh, score of examination. So let's take a look at the formula personality. Raymond Cattell mentioned that a person's specific response in R in a moment is determined by both situation, which is he used as determine the situation and circumstances, whether in environment of that individual, and the P for personality structure. So, a person's response in which B can be how he doing or thinking or verbalizing or what his action gonna be. So let's break it down the two major facts, which is the situation where the external factors like social roles, environment and context, and also current mood, stress level, anxiety, your mood, and many more. Your personality also, the individual traits, structures like extrovertness, agreeableness, and also introvert. These having a like breakdown in what the cartel has uh, portrayed in the formula personality. So why is it complex to understand? So the first is we know that the trait interaction, because each trait members combines with situational factors, which depends on their environment structure. And second is non-trait influence, which is currently based on the individual modes, social role, gender, context, also shared responses. And last, dynamic weights, which each trait doesn't impact equally their influence. So it's hard to predict whether the behavior from traits it's alone depends on the environment or also depends on the uh, individual itself. So to improve the accuracy in this situation, so Raman said that which traits that the person has, how relevant, how reliable each trait is, the context can be, and other institutional influences such like mode and role and situation, uh, in what situation that the person has been in. So to summarize, say that the Cattell's formula is simplified to show the behavior arise from a mixed personality, whether you are based on that environment circumstances. Next, we can see the example of how the Raymond Cattell mentioned in comparing the characteristic or job scopes between the writer and also the airplane pilots. When compared to the writers, tend to be more conscious. Airplane pilots tend to be more conscious, so they more relaxed, self-assured, and also less sensitive because they are focusing on the environment and also the passengers' environment. So writers, on the other hand, we can say that were more imaginative and better able to think abstractly. So next, we move on to the next theory, which are the traits mentioned by the hands. Okay, so okay, So the data use factor analysis, like I mentioned before, the data behavior shows that how individual can be in a good model of every circumstances, whether the behavior and personal traits can changes within a period of time, because the T data referred by the Raman Cattell mentioned that a person's reaction to experiment in a lab setting can influence the interaction of the peers, group niche of people, and also the members around. So this is the normal range personality that you can see in the 16 PF frames industry, which is, let's take a look at one example only. So we can see that the clinical or counseling or in health industry, they tend to do the assessment, diagnose, and therapy plan. So the purpose and benefit will focusing on emotionally stability, which can outgoing versus their another introvert personality. So let's take a look into the Eysenck personality theory. Eysenck personality theory mentioned that there are two uh, approach, which is the nomotical and also the biological, meaning that he aimed to identify the general laws of personality apply to all individuals equal. uh, it just differ from what they tend to be, uh, whether in higher levels of um, situation or low level of situation. So he used the factor analysis like Raymond Cattell's use to identify the underlying traits that could actually explain what kind of behavior a person or individuals can be, and also emphasize the objective measurement trait that link to the personality traits to specific psychological mechanism. So this is the types of approach dimension that used by our science. We know that there are two major traits, which is extrovert and also introvert. The ambiversion is divided between the extroversion and also introversion. Okay, according to the theoretical approach theory. Okay, so you can see that in Isaac's cycle, the unstable suggests that the high levels of introversion and extroversion can be related to a crime, which is the uh, which is the ambiversions that made up in a stable and unstable over the extroversion and also introversion. So last but not least, I will mention about the body trait personality, which is the big five. Uh, there are 16 factors that we call to discuss and talking about someone's personality. So the big five personality trait refers to the basic human characteristic that make up a person's personality, and according to research done by various psychologists, Raymond Cattell, Heinz Sachs, and also so many more. So these five dimensions actually have become known as the five factors of model that represent the core value, descriptiveness of human personality. So this is only dimension because it's not necessary to understand what make us really ticks. So the key characteristics. In key characteristic, we can say that dimension is continuum, which is there are two level, which is high and low. Most people fall somewhere in between, like in Isaac, between the extroversion and also introversion, they are ambivert, right? So the big five model emerged via lexical analysis and factor analysis of personality descriptors. So this kind of significant literature mentioned by the Big Five on the subject exists, it a robust foundation for behind the topic to differentiate the five personalities that refers to a scale in this slide. So in this slide, The big five mentioned the ocean dimension. He used the acronym, which is openness, consciousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So these kind of uh, dimension actually propose that are not interdependent. In another way, that knowing someone actually score uh, extrovertedness, for example, would not give any information about score on another four dimension. So the big five personality traits include the ocean dimension, actually depending on whether they are score high or low in this trait. So a person can actually barely know that themselves on a deeper level by understanding these five of dimension. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Mohammed Shaidi, and today I'll be talking about personality assessment. Firstly, let's talk about interview. Interview is a face-to-face meeting or direct questioning held for the purpose of gaining information about an individual personal history, personal traits, and current psychological states. Interview is also used primarily used by psychoanalysts and humanists and can include structured and unstructured interviews. Interviews makes it possible to observe a person's body language such as tone of voice, hand gestures, postures, and facial expressions such as non-verbal cues, which are important because they could radically alter the message sent. In a unstructured interview, conversation is formal and topics are taken up to freely as they arise. In a structured interview, however, information is gathered by asking a planned series of questions. For example, having a job interview. In a interview, people are oftenly asked about their personal history and personal traits, which, sorry, in a job interview, people are oftenly asked about personal history and personal traits so that the interviewee can know more about the interviewer. However, in during these interviews, a huge flaw can be found as during these interviews, the interviewer might uh, be lying during these interviews, which makes these interviews a little bit unreliable to gain actual information. Next, sorry. Next is behavioral assessment. For behavioral assessment, it's primarily used by behaviorists to quantify behavior through direct observation of behavior, rating scales of specific behavior, and frequency counts of behavior. For behavioral assessment, a direct observation is conducted, assessing behavior through direct surveillance. The psychologist observes the clients engaging in ordinary, everyday behavior and preferably in natural settings such as home, schools, or workplace. A rating scale is a numeric rating which is assigned by either the assessor of the client for specific behaviors, which is sorry, which is uh, frequency. Okay, sorry. Frequency rating scale is a numeric rating scale assigned by either the assessor or the client for specific behaviors by Nadio et al. 2001. Frequency count, the assessor literally counts the frequency of certain behaviors within a specific time limit. For example, when you observe a patient in a psychological standpoint, you can see certain changes in their behaviors, such as shaking of their leg. These types of behavior are observed and uh, duly noted by the psychologist. Situational testing in real life conditions are simulated so that a person's spontaneous reactions can be observed directly. Such tests assume that the best way to learn how people react is to put them in a realistic situation and watch what happens. Next is projective test. A projective test is a series of tests that is conducted in order to sorry a series of tests is conducted in order to determine assess a person's personality. Although projective tests have been criticized for being low in reliability and validity due to a possible subjectivity in interpretation. Sub- Projective tests are tests by are very subjective by nature and only valid within a person's own perception. Interpreting the answers of client is almost an art and may be a projective test for the scorer. It is also not certain. It is certainly not a science, and it is not known for its accuracy. Uh, Next slide. Next is objective personality inventories. Personality inventories are objective tests rather than subjective, typically developed by the trait theorists and provide a detailed description of certain personality traits. Example of these personality inventories are MBTI and MPPI. First, I'll talk about the MBTI, which is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is a personality test which is used to identify a person career path. Uh, Next slide. Sorry. Used to Okay, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which is MBTI, is based on Jung's theory of personality types and often used to identify the kinds of careers for which may be suited. The purpose of these MBTI tests is to help people understand themselves better, especially in their career choices and workplace behavior. These MBTI tests are often done by students in order to help them know what career path they should choose. Next slide. In MBTI, there are dimensions of trend meaning. There are four dimensions in MBTI, which are energy source, information, decision making, and lifestyle and structure. For each of these dimensions, there are two options. Uh, for energy source, there are introversion and extraversion. For information, there is sensing and intuition. For decision making, there is thinking and feeling. For lifestyle, uh, there is judging and perceiving. For introversion, it means that a person who gains energy from alone time versus extraversion, which gains energy from being around others. For sensing, uh, is a person who prefer facts and details rather than big picture ideas and possibilities. For this decision making, that is thinking, which is do people make decision by using logic or make decision by using their emotions or values. Judging versus perceiving, do people prefer planning and order before making a certain decision, or flexibility, just go with the flow. Next slide is MPPI2. Oh no, sorry. The 16 types of MBTI. Each type of four-letter combination from the MBTI dimensions. Uh, uh, there are four. Sorry, there are 16 types of MBTI personalities that could be gained from the sources of MBTI. For example, INTJ indicates that a person is strategic, independent, and logical, which means that INTJ personality indicates that a person could become a politician. Uh, these types can differ from each individual, and each type reflects a preferred way of interacting with the world. Next slide is MPPI-2, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Version 2, MPPI-2, is designed to detect abnormal personality. The behavior patterns include relatively mild personality problems as well as more serious disorders. MPPI-2 consists of a true or false questionnaire with 567 questions. Uh, these tests, by comparing a person's profile with scores, is produced by typically normal adults. A psychologist can identify various personality disorders. Example of these personality disorders can be seen at the next slide. Sorry, which is these are the 10 of the basic clinical states for MPPI2. For the first example is hyperchondriasis, which is concern with health and physical symptoms. Second is depression, depressive symptoms and mood problems. Third is hysteria, emotionally and a tendency to avoid stress. Fourth is psychopathic devi- antisocial behavior and rule breaking. The fifth is masculinity, femininity, gender role interests and behaviors. Uh, the next is paranoia, suspicion and distrust of others. Uh, the next is psychedemia, anxiety or obsessive of thinking. Next is schizophrenia, odd thoughts, hallucinations, and social alienation. Next is hypomania, which is an elevated mood, energy, and impulsiveness. And the last is social introversion, which is shyness and the preference to be alone. That is all from us. Thank you.